Biden's job ratings decline amid COVID surge, Afghanistan withdrawal in NBC News poll. I think he's now below 50% for the first time. So that's definitely a little bit concerning for the president. I tweeted out that now would be a great time to legalize it because, these new lows could definitely be buoyed by something. And I think we all know what that something is. But yeah, what do you think about this, Zach?
Yeah, well, I think that this couples well with another poll that just came out, which shows that there was a CV or CVA, sort of Concerned Veterans for America, I believe is the name of the poll that came out. But it showed that Americans overwhelmingly support withdrawal of Afghanistan. And so it's one of those reasons why I don't know if this is 100% responsible for COVID or for Biden's job rating decline, excuse me. I think that, while there's been a concerted, overwhelming media effort to make it look like he's bungled the job, and that's why you see only 25% of the people support his handling of it. And it's like, who supports having people abandoned at airports, people falling off planes, former, U.S. allies getting abandoned, tens of thousands of people with U.S. citizenship still in Afghanistan that are desperately trying to get out. Who supports that, right? But what they don't do is they don't give any context to how much fuckery has been involved in a long time. And of course, it's a very nuanced conversation, right? The problem being if you send more troops to make sure that you can get people out, okay, now an American soldier gets killed, now you're back in a fucking full-on war in Afghanistan, you no longer withdraw. Like, all these things are complicated, right? And I think that the average American person can understand that, but when you're constantly being fed and inundated with shit like, oh, we should have stayed, or oh, like, how could we let this all be for nothing? Like, oh, what about the women and children, all that kind of stuff. It will start to weigh on you. But I think the real hidden factor, something that's not been talked about enough by the media because they've been so focused on the withdrawal of Afghanistan and how that's impacting Biden's numbers, is the fact that this overwhelming rise in COVID, something that Biden swore on the campaign trail that he was going to restore order to, take care of, etc., where he's under-delivered on that. And we're seeing, more mask mandates go back into place, more daily deaths than we've seen in a long time, certainly more COVID cases than we've seen in a long time. That's starting to wear on people. And they're like, wait, why the fuck did I even vote for this guy? This was the one thing he was supposed to take care of.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And it honestly boggles my mind that from the very beginning, Joe Biden and the U.S. government didn't just offer people like at least $1,000 to take the vaccine. I think it was the obvious decision. And come on, guys, like, yeah, people definitely should go get inoculated, but we can't trust fucking Americans to do that. We're lazy people. A lot of us are very lazy. A lot of us are overworked. A lot of us have a lot of shit on our plate. We can't expect a whole nation of fucking people, especially America, to go out and just take this without any sort of compensation. I'm sorry, but it just was never going to happen. So they should have offered people $1,000 to take it, and we wouldn't be in the situation right now. I think it's fair to say. I think we'd have a astronomically higher vaccination rate. I've even talked to people, this is anecdotal evidence, obviously, but I've talked to people that don't have the vaccine. They're not opposed to getting it. They're literally just too lazy. I'm serious. They just don't want to. Because they're like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fucking bureaucracy. That sounds like waiting in a line. That sounds like, potentially having some symptoms, etc. Call it selfish, whatever, call it laziness. It is what it is. I asked those people, would you have taken it by now if you had been offered like even $500? Of course. That's what they say. Of course I would have. So I think that's pretty obvious. And again, we can sit around blaming, people that are largely of the lower classes, people that are largely, don't have enough money or information. We can blame those people for the state we're in with the Delta variant, or we could blame the U.S. government, which has money to do this, but isn't spending it on convincing people that it's worth it to take this vaccine. And I don't know if that's a controversial opinion or not, but I think it's just an obvious one. Obviously, we need another stimulus too. So it would be perfect in that sense as well. Anyway, I think that, Biden could have easily had this problem under control to a much greater extent if he'd embraced a policy like that, instead of just assuming everyone's going to, find the goodness in their heart and their responsibility to go out and do what they need to for their community. So again, I think this is a pretty obvious answer to this, and it's really frustrating to see the Biden administration not, pursue that strategy. Again, you knock out another stimulus check. you get more people vaccinated, and that's going to increase your approval rating.
I also think that I also think that you're right in the sense that Americans might be lazy, but I think that a lot of it is the overworked element, right? And a lot of the fact is that when Americans have free time, we want to just do exactly whatever it is that is on our mind and on our agenda. So incentivizing that behavior like we would anything else, going to the fucking DMV or whatever, takes me 6 months because I just don't want to fucking do it. And if my girlfriend hadn't goddamn dragged me to get my fucking vaccine, I don't know how long it would have taken me to get mine either. I just don't like doing that kind of shit, right? And of course, you have community responsibility. It's something that if you're really steeped in this kind of shit, you might feel. But the average person, I mean, I'm sorry, but this is the reality of this socioeconomic world we live in America is that it really forces people to just kind of look out for themselves and maybe their immediate social circle, because we're constantly cash strapped and constantly being preyed upon by fucking people who want our money if you're in the lower class, which is why it is odious, like you said, Gavin, when people like Lieutenant Governor of Texas are out saying oh, it's poor black people that aren't getting the vaccine and those people vote Democrats. It's the Democrats that don't want you to have the vaccine and whatever. That was a real ass quote. You guys can look it up. I don't forget what that fucker's name is.
Yeah, exactly. And I mostly say lazy just because I think that describes me. I fucking put off responding to emails. I certainly can understand people's laziness. I'm not throwing shade. I think that's just an accurate description of the human condition that applies to 50% of the population or more. That being said, I think this is a whole ridiculous situation that could have been taken care of so much easier. I don't really understand why it wasn't embraced from the beginning, especially because we have all these states doing these vaccine lotteries. Even in Missouri, I think you can apply to get $10,000 if you get the vaccine or whatever. But again, it's a lottery, so it's you have a chance. Which to me is more insulting than anything. It's instead of just paying people, they're oh, you can enter in this competition, have a 1 in a million chance of becoming rich by taking the vaccine. Just fucking pay people to take it, and we wouldn't be in this issue anymore. We wouldn't have this fucking problem anymore. So again, I blame the government on this one. I definitely think it's accurate to say, though, that regardless of the Afghanistan pullout, which I think will largely be, I don't think that'll be a determinative issue at all come 2024. I don't think that people will really care much about it. If anything, it could help Biden, because in the event that Trump is running against Biden, Biden can turn around and say, I did what you said you were going to do. You talked about this for 4 years and I fucking did it, regardless of how much the media came after me. I stood up to the establishment like you said you were going to, you fucking fraud. That's what I would do if I were Joe Biden. So if anything, I'd give him a leg up in the general election. And people have quick memories, especially when it comes to foreign policy. When the media stops talking about this, unfortunately, a lot of people are just going to totally forget. We were just talking about that happening with Haiti. Everyone was talking about Haiti when their president got assassinated, and now no one gives a shit. Unfortunately,
there was an earthquake and a tropical storm, massive flooding, just devastating the island.
Exactly. And those are things we should all be talking about. Those things we are talking about at the Vanguard. But unfortunately, people have very short attention spans and very short memories, and that's that's really fueled by the news cycle. They're constantly throwing new information at you. There's always a story more depressing than the next one or more cataclysmic than the next one to keep your mind, frayed. I do think it's the case that people are going to forget this episode and move on, that, by the time Biden's up for re-election, there's going to be so many bigger issues to worry about. And I think it's also fair to say that, this COVID shit is probably impacting his approval rating, probably more so than the Afghanistan withdrawal. I think people are they felt like they had a taste of their freedom back. And then all of a sudden, here's this Delta variant shit. It's it looked like we were on the up and up. It looked like we were going to get a return to normal, so to speak. That was Biden's message. And it seemed like he was delivering on it for a while. But now everything is kind of, up in the air again. We're not sure. Our lockdown's going to come back. We all have to put our fucking masks back on. I know no one is amused about that. There's all of these things. And it's kind of come on, man. I thought you were going to get us back to normal. I thought you were going to get rid of this COVID shit and get shots in arms. Again, he could have gotten shots in arms if he'd paid people $1,000 to do them. But that didn't happen. So here we are. And that's definitely on Joe Biden. I think he should definitely consider doing something like that if he wants to turn this around. But, it's definitely interesting to see his approval rating falling. I'm going to be interested to see what he does to try to bring it back up. If anything, like I mentioned a second ago, now would be a great time to legalize cannabis. I'm just saying, guys, it would really...